You're hanging out in the House of Sunny podcast, where it's always sunny, mostly because of your host, comedian and YouTuber, Sunny Lohman. Want to know what Sunny and her friends are thinking about this week? Well, here she is, Sunny Lohman.
Like, I had a little breakdown, and it's just been a really stressful couple of months in my life, so I just had to kind of scale back and focus on priorities, and unfortunately, this is not it.
Is there such a thing as a little breakdown?
Yeah, it's like you can have a breakdown without actually being hospitalized because it's 2019 and
Okay,
people don't commit people very often. Like, we have a shortage of mental hospitals in this country, so you can kind of have a breakdown and still, you know, be free and get
it's kind
absolutely
of a home
no help.
Breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah,
home.
It's a home breakdown.
That's fine. Everybody has one of those every now and then.
Yeah, a little too much stress. A lot too much stress. I tipped over the edge, and I just had to really scale back. I was just completely, it happens, I guess. And I think I was sleepless too.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Sleep is everything, by the way.
It kind of is. And
it really is important.
I was saying that I don't think I was A, as sleepless, or B, as crazy last week. This was like early last week. As I had been since I had a newborn baby. So I was kind of feeling the same sort of crazy, like, first of all, I can't think straight, and I don't even know how to solve my problems, and I'm just like emotionally absolutely useless and crazy, and that's kind of how I felt. And I think it's lack of sleep for sure, coupled with some very real serious stress in my family's life. I mean, we moved to this new town, and then I'm sick. I'm continuing to be quite sick. I've been, well, why am I getting into this?
Yeah.
I do not want to get into this. That's another show. If you want to know, you can write comments, and maybe I'll do a whole show. What's wrong with Sunny? Anyway, yeah, I had a home breakdown, and I feel a lot better now. Sometimes you need to do that too, because I think it signals to other people in your life, okay, we got to step up here.
Yeah, it's a catharsis.
Yeah, and that happened, and I feel like my stress has gone down, and I'm not dealing with as much. Other people are more aware that they have to kind of be taking on some of this stuff for me and coming around me and helping me, and that's happened, and I feel just more serene. So
I noticed, by the way, that women in my life sometimes, because women are so naturally nurturing and take care of everybody type people, that sometimes when it gets overwhelming, rather than say anything, they almost do break down, and then it is a signal like, hey, everybody, pick up your damn dishes, do your own laundry, clean up after yourselves. You know, it's like everyone's got to, and help mom.
Right.
You know?
Help mom. It's time to help mom. Right.
Yeah.
And when you're sick,
on top of it all,
I just wasn't taking care of myself, and I'm really sick, and I wasn't able to take care of myself. And that's fine for like a month, but it was getting into the second month of that, and it just wasn't okay, you know? And I was getting worse and worse and worse, and getting bad news from doctors, like I'm getting more and more anemic. And so it's just, I started to be like, hey, what about me? You know, everybody's got to rally here, and friends and family need to come to my aid. I mean, there are just times where you just really need people, and it's hard to reach out and ask for that help, I think. I think most people, unless you were raised in a family that's really generous and warm and everybody's there for everybody, which, what is that? 5% of people, maybe?
Maybe 180 years ago, things were like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was much more like that before. And these days you live so far from everybody, and, you know, and I'm in a new town, so I don't even have the support system I had in my just previous town from having lived there for 3 years. And so, anyway, it was tough. But that is not our topic for today. Our topic for today is I want to talk about judging people in the context of entertainment and, well, I mean, just in general, judging people. But the story, this idea was sparked by, there's this Christian comedian, John Crist, and it's now been discovered that he's a slut.
Oh.
So, like, Christians are freaking out.
Like a gay guy?
No, not gay. Like a rock and roller,
Oh,
like
okay.
a guy who's famous and trying to just get a lot of pussy. If I'm going to put it bluntly.
Yeah.
But he's I don't know if this is a problem or not. He's really funny, you guys. And there aren't that many funny people who are kind of overtly Christian. And a lot of his jokes, and I don't go to church and stuff. And he's making a lot of fun in a very kind and loving way of church people and church stuff. And he's so good at it that even people who don't have that background could laugh. And I found him to be hilarious. But of course, because he's overtly Christian, a huge portion of his following are very Christian people, and they're all like, "Hey, we've got a comedian," And you know how Christians, so like nowadays we complain all the time about how the left is like going after people, and they're the scolds, and they're the woke scolds, and they're crushing people's careers because they've had one little slip up somewhere and did the wrong thing, and we laugh because it's like, hey, this used to be the Christians, right? Like the moralizing pricks who can't abide if you personally have any flaws.
Right.
And I don't even know that it's, in some cases with the woke scolds and stuff, it's actually not flaws. They're actually going after people who are but like, let's say a real racist person, like he's really a little racist. Maybe he thinks he's like kind of a white nationalist, and he thinks we'd be better off if all the brown people just left or something. I don't know if that's racist or cultural or whatever, that can be argued, but okay, that guy, he still deserves to have a job and support his family, right? I don't know.
Yeah,
you're very
well, it
quiet,
depends.
But...
It depends. I mean, there's so much context that you can't just ask those questions, I think, in a vacuum. That's part of my
Okay, so this is the theme of today's show, is how do we judge people? And how do we do it? And I'm going to start with this example of John Crist, and then we're going to go over into like the Silicon Valley founders. We're going to talk about a show that I'm watching that I'm loving, even though I would like snap the neck of the star. I just can't stand this person so much. And it prevented me from watching this really great show until recently, and I'll tell you about it. People like George Orwell, who was once a communist but wrote an incredible book. I mean, this is what the show is about. How do we take what we can from people and stop, I don't know. What is the right thing to do? We need to judge and be prepared to be judged. That's what Ayn Rand said, and I agree with that. But how do you judge, and how do you then incorporate that judgment into your life? Donald Trump is a perfect example. So, okay, let's start with John Crist, and I'm just gonna read, the story's kind of humorous, and we can laugh about this, but okay. I'm gonna read this article, it's so funny. In a shocking report from Charisma News, popular Christian comedian John Crist has admitted to repeated inappropriate relationships and treatment toward women, calling his own behavior destructive and sinful. Okay, now are you starting to think that maybe he's forced himself on a woman or something?
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Okay. Here's what the story is. Okay, this is the biggest, worst story they've got, all right? According to one woman harassed by Crist, not assaulted, her encounter involved heavy drinking and multiple attempts by the star to hook up with her sexually.
Come on.
Despite him having just met her boyfriend.
Come on.
He knew I had a boyfriend, and I should still be able to get drunk with him and go swimming with him, and okay, it goes on. Intoxicated, they took off their rollerblades and ran into the water. Once there, she says, Crist grabbed her and tried to kiss her.
Is this like a Brady Bunch episode plot?
I don't even know what's going on here. Like, are we really upset about this? The girl gets drunk.
Wow.
Okay, it goes on. It gets worse. And
Is this like 1670 or something?
I don't even know. Yeah, it's like, okay, in her drunken state, she struggled to push him off. He told her in crude terms how much he wanted to have sex with her and continued to pursue her. In response, she tried to explain that she had a boyfriend and only desired a mentoring relationship with Crist.
Come on.
Not a sexual one. And eventually, he relented. Later in the evening, he didn't stop there. So here's what happened next. She rollerbladed back with him to his apartment.
Come on.
Once then, Crist again grabbed her, crudely propositioning her for sex, begged her to stay. She pushed him off and left. And on the verge of blackout drunk, called an Uber to bring her home. Do you freaking believe that that's like some horrible sin?
Wow.
The guy's a famous comedian. A girl goes to his apartment, puts on rollerblades, drinks excessively to blackout level almost, rollerblades to a lake, swims with him, and is offended that he thinks she's open to having sex with him?
Wow. Yeah, like what? I mean, have we been watching human beings for the last 50,000 years? I don't even understand
this. Like, okay, so I mean, now I've known some.
Have you met a man?
Right, like let alone a famous guy. Now, I think fame can be destructive to certain people if you have insecurities and stuff. And I've met some famous musicians, and they have this incredibly promiscuous sex life, and I think we can agree that that makes a person miserable. At a certain point, it makes you miserable. You don't get.
We're agreeing on that.
Maybe a woman feels that way more than a man does. But like, let's say that you've slept with 1,000 women and you don't have like you're lonely. I mean, I think men like to be in committed relationships too. So, I mean, there's a big value in that. And so if you don't pursue that, eventually you're freaking alone,
Well, what's wrong with that?
Okay, maybe because you're a human being.
This is a whole nother show.
Right.
Because I've actually been having the same discussion with, older married men that, friends of mine that, we ask that question almost every day.
Right. Would it be worse to be a bachelor? I think it would. I mean, if you go talk to bachelors who don't have kids, have never been married, it's just as bad as being a 50-year-old woman who's never been married and has no kids. You're going to grow old without children and without family, and humans need family. And then what happens if you get an illness? Who's going to be there to where's your community,
Well, I think if you ask either side, they'll say do the other thing. Because I talked to a middle-aged man who was living the life single, and, I remember him telling me, no, get married, have kids. You don't want to be like me. And now I'm, married, kids, all that stuff. And I'm like, that guy had a great life. Was I?
You would be lonely. You would be lonely.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. There's pros and cons to it.
Right. There are pros and cons to anything. So anyway, I do think there's some dysfunction there. These guys, they get famous. Women throw themselves at them. There's nothing real about it. Mm-hmm. And they end up, I think, filling, if everybody has insecurities, and there are different ways you can deal with that and handle that. And I think what happens to famous people is that they end up filling that sometimes, famous men in particular, with sex. And then they become kind of dysfunctional with it. So he says, now here's what he says. This is his statement. Because he was hot for a chick who got drunk and alone with him and went rollerblading and swimming with him. I mean, honestly, I just can't even get upset about that, but here's his statement. Over the past number of years, various women have accused me of behavior that has been hurtful to them. While I am not guilty of everything I've been accused of, I confess to being guilty of this. I have treated relationships with women too casually and in some cases recklessly. So that's like every guy in the world and some women, right?
Right.
My behavior has been destructive and sinful. I've sinned against God, against women, and the people who I love the most. I've violated my own Christian beliefs, convictions, and values, and have hurt many people in the process. I'm sorry for the hurt and pain I've caused these women and will continue to seek their forgiveness. I've also hurt the name of Jesus and have sought his forgiveness. So, he's Christian, so he is feeling guilty about this. But I don't think it's really that bad, and he's really funny. So how about we just go enjoy his comedy and let the guy have a private life? Let him solve his own problems himself, right?
I like the idea of approaching women with the mentor rap. This is no, let's rollerblade to the lake and swim. I just want to mentor you.
I'll help you craft comedic jokes if we just have 5 shots of whiskey and go swimming.
And go back to my apartment. It's just a mentor. No,
but you met my boyfriend, so you should know better.
You know what's interesting about this
is women never screwed on somebody's back, Women never do that. So I'm sure once he met the boyfriend, he was like, oh, it's just over.
But so I can see, like, this guy is overtly Christian and he's making his name on that. And he's, I guess, in that context, acting hypocritically, although we would say this is kind of laughable. But one of the first things that strikes me is how this emphasizes how religious the left has become. Because remember, the left they were the libertines, generations ago. They were the sexually free, anything goes, moral relativists, and now this could have easily been a narrative of some woke scold, SJW, right?
Right. How dare he? We found a blackface picture of him from 30 years ago,
or even related to sex. Like, I went to a frat party, and I remember,
the Me Too stuff.
I forgot who it was. Some professor was talking about this woman, this feminist type, was saying she went on this trip with these young women, these American women, to Brazil or something, and there were some construction workers down there, and this girl was wearing practically nothing, just like her normal, basically dressed like a slut, and this woman was offended that these men were like whistling at her and like propositioning her, like, how dare these men, do that to me. So it's almost like it's amazing to me that we've now had this, the whole thing is religious in a sense. None of this behavior, I guess it's wrong. I guess he's flawed or whatever, but who, I guess it does matter in the context of him being a Christian, an overtly Christian guy, if that's how he's making his name. So if you're one of those people, I guess you'd be concerned about him. But even then,
I don't think he has said, hey, I'm the Christian comic. But a lot of his material is Christian because he's very deeply Christian, He goes to church, he's really involved, and he's really funny. And so he makes fun of that stuff. And so he's getting that label. And of course, it's like you and me, we have our things, and so we have our followers within those groups. But I welcome anybody enjoying our show, left or right, or, objectivist or Christian or whatever. Like, I think whatever you can find here, find it. And I don't want to be abandoned. Like, I think objectivism is going through this somewhat too. So in objectivism, if you say something that departs from the objectivist party line at this point, you're out.
Right.
It's like, wait a second. How about just enjoy my show? And you can agree with me, you can disagree with me, whatever, but do you find it entertaining? Are you having fun? Do you want to ask questions? Do you want to make a statement? You know what I'm saying? Like, this idea that like human beings need to be perfect in order to trade with them, I guess would be the way to say it in objectivist terminology. Like, we're traders. buy my show, listen to my show if you like it. Don't stop listening to me or unfriend me on Facebook or whatever because I once said something that you think is wrong. That to me is beyond the pale. And this to me too. And this, by the way, you're right. This did come from the left first with this whole Me Too stuff. The same stuff's going on there. I don't know if you remember the scandal about comedian Chris Hardwick. Do you remember that?
No.
So this guy was like an up-and-coming comedian, probably a Democrat. His ex-girlfriend claimed that he sexually and emotionally abused her. And like her main claim was like, that she let him sexually assault her, which he denies. But okay, so they were in a committed relationship.
Yeah.
Okay. And who knows what was happening in their bedroom, whatever. If she was, you know what I'm saying? Like he didn't beat her. She never went to the cops. There was nothing. Anyway, and then her worst complaint was something like, she would be at home waiting for him and he wouldn't come home and she'd be in tears. And the guy lost his show, was kicked off. He lost everything in Hollywood.
Right.
Because this girl said, oh, he wasn't nice to me.
Yeah, that's a form of, I want to make a couple points about this, because I think it ties into answering this whole woke scold thing as well as the religious thing and the crossover. I think these are examples of contextless judgment. So I've said this before on the show. I wrote a post about this as well. But you don't ask, how do you judge? I think you ask why you judge.
Yes.
And that's the first question you're asking is, why does this person's behavior or character matter to my self-interest? Because the reason you judge people is not to convene some heavenly tribunal for eternal judgment, like you're a god or something. The reason we judge people is as a form of self-interest. You're trying to determine whether or not a transaction or an interaction or a relationship with someone is going to be to your advantage. And sometimes their character matters to that judgment, and sometimes it doesn't. If you're buying a hot dog from someone, I don't really care what his religious beliefs or his personal life is. I care if he's making the hot dog right. If I'm choosing whether to go into business with someone or to marry them or, have some intimate relationship in some way, then yeah, man, their character definitely matters because it's a sign that, if they're dishonest over here, maybe they're going to be dishonest over there, so you have to be real careful. And I think that the evidence that you collect or the types of information or evidence, whatever you want to call it, that you're looking at is appropriate or commensurate with whatever the judgment is that you're trying to make. And so when you're looking at, a comedian, I don't really care. Now, if they're an assaulter or a criminal level type person, then by supporting them, you're enabling a criminal. So that to me is like what's operative in that context. If they're just like a bad person or they have trouble in their relationships, I don't give a crap. If they're funny, that, I'm paying them to listen to them or be funny, then great. Then they have some dysfunction in their personal life. Who cares?
What's always bothered me on the right is the purity test. And it's why they've ended up with a culture on the right of phonies. Everybody's a phony. Everybody, has to look like Mitt Romney, or they're not fit for political office. Now you can't entertain people if you're not perfect in your personal life. If you've ever inhaled marijuana or whatever, like on the left, you could be flawed and you could have inhaled and you could still become president. And I'm not saying that's great, but I guess I'm just saying that, it's like you're saying, why are we judging? And at what point is it too immoral? Well, yeah, if you're a criminal, then yes, you shouldn't be president of the United States.
And the false alternative would be saying, on the other hand, the false alternative would be, I can't look at any evidence from this person's life with respect to some judgment, because that's, everything's relative and nothing matters. So exactly. if someone's going to be president, or they're going to be the leader of your business, or, whatever it is, and they've had like massive moral lapses in their life, well, that could be totally relevant to your decision if they look like a person who has a history or track record of deceiving people. So, I would never rule that out as a factor. But like I said, if you're buying a hot dog from them, who cares, in that context. And so, and this idea that, everyone's flawed, everyone makes mistakes, and to set some sort of perfect, first of all, we would probably disagree with the whole standard that the Christians have created for determining what's virtuous or not. To me, some things Christians believe are virtuous, I'd probably agree are virtuous, and some things are probably not, or,
Right.
Or at least unrealistic or kind of ridiculous. On the other hand, the left, what's funny to me is that the left used to be morally relativistic. That, look
Right.
at Roman Polanski, who was an alleged pedophile, or Woody Allen or something like that. That's just like, oh, that's all water under the bridge.
Well, they're
No big
still
deal.
morally relativistic because if it suits them, they don't go after the person. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, they're fine. Epstein, all that stuff is all dismissed and not discussed. Roman Polanski, not discussed. Chris Hardwick loses his life because his girlfriend said he was mean to her. It's just a weird, like, they're all over the place.
Yeah, there's some deeper moral foundational things going on there, that would probably require some psychology to understand, like, where the left, because the left, they're emphasizing these points of their social justice spectrum, which revolves around anything that smacks of sexism or racism. What are the cardinal sins? Racism, sexism,
Xenophobia.
homophobia. Yeah. So if you're somehow violate that code, which having sex with children apparently doesn't fall in that code yet.
No, but it's you have to violate the code, but then in addition to that, you have to be expendable. So if you're Justin Trudeau, you can get away with blackface.
Good point. So if you're in a position of political power, it's okay. You can do whatever you want because
Right.
you're well-intentioned, and you've virtue signaled to everyone that you're the well-intentioned communist who's trying to do right by the collective, and therefore any transgression is water
Right.
under the bridge. So, but that's a good point. I think it's political power plus their moral spectrum.
Right.
Whereas conservatives are not conservatives. I don't know. You could probably call it conservatives, but social conservatives, religious types would be in and of themselves sort of have a platonic standard of virtue by which they would, take someone down or not like someone, but they're both religious standards in a sense. They're both non-objective, because what I'm saying is evaluate, and this is to me, it's a scientific question. If you're to do the best job at serving your own self-interest or the self-interest of whatever group you're representing when you're making a judgment of this kind, you want to know what factors are most likely to forecast what someone's going to be like in whatever position we're asking them to be in, whether it's leader of a business or some simple transaction or a marriage or whatever. What someone did when they were 16 probably doesn't matter. But to the left, it might, and to a religious person, it might, because like the Kavanaugh thing, that mattered to them just because they didn't care what Kavanaugh did in college. They just wanted to get him politically shamed so that he wouldn't get on the Supreme Court. That was a political move. But for a conservative, I guess they'd say, well, this person isn't godly or something like that.
Well, I think that's the reason. Okay, so this is why I would say I'm an objectivist versus, something else. The idea that my judgment should be self-interested and not, but Christians vary, because some of them are like, you know what? God's going to judge you. This is not my problem. I'm going to enjoy his show. Like, you have that kind of Christian. And then you have the other kind of Christian that's like, oh no, I can't support or have anything to do with anyone who's ever, done anything or is doing something that I don't think is moral. And those people need to calm down, because I think they have ruined the culture on the right. I see those people fewer and fewer in that on the right. You know what I'm saying? I think you're seeing a lot more art and comedy, and people like Donald Trump are changing things on the right because, I don't think he's much of a Christian or very religious, but he's not appropriate. He's done a lot of immoral things. He's cheated on his wives, on and on. Who cares? He's just being hired right now to be a president in the context of Hillary Clinton was the other option. And we need somebody who's a little bit more of a rabble rouser, I think, in that role. Just look what he's had to endure, and ask yourself if anybody but a narcissistic New York piece of shit could endure that. I just don't know.
Right. And that's a great example, though, as a politician, because Hillary in her own life is as corrupt, and the form of her corruption, I think, is more appropriate or more or worse to the function that we're choosing her for. So if you're politically corrupt and you want to socialize medicine and you want to sell out America's, national security interests for your own personal gain to raise money for your foundation, or, and you'll do anything in a quest for political power, including sicking the IRS on people and, ruining women who accused your husband of rape. These are the kinds of moral lapses and the types of corruptions that affect me as a voter. Whereas if Trump is cheats on his wife, these are the choices. Ideally we would have good people, but if Trump is cheating on his wife, that's something to keep in mind. This guy's kind of a duplicitous motherfucker,
Right.
But is that, given the choice on the other side and given what he's likely to do as a politician, let's say they were both equally morally reprehensible people. They're liars, they're scoundrels. But let's say one guy is taking money from a group that just promotes free markets, and he's only promoting free markets as president because someone's giving him money to do it. And the other side is taking money from the communists. Well, they're both morally bad people who will just do whatever, whomever pays them money to do. Well, I'll vote for the guy who's taking money from the free market thing. Now, he could change his mind and take money from another higher bidder, that promotes communism. But right now, that's all I got. That's my choice. And, that's my self-interest, right now. So, you have to take into account all these factors. It's not.
And we're not saying all behavior is fine, anything goes, and you shouldn't judge it. But you really do have to hold context. And then act accordingly. So who you're going to vote for is your action. And the choice must be one. I'm not saying you throw out morality. I'm just saying that you weigh it, like you said, is this person robbing from the people? Donald Trump did a little bit of that with eminent domain and stuff like that. So, when those two were up, I was like, the problem is that Hillary Clinton's crimes are so vast that, let's let Donald Trump have a chance. And if he commits those crimes, I'm all for, locking him up too. But let's let him do it before we say, we can't vote for him because he might. Let's get off the Donald Trump example, because the John Crist example, I want to go back to the right. The right is going to ruin this burgeoning, fun, irreverent, we're winning the meme war. The right is becoming cool. The right is becoming cool with people like John Crist, a really brilliant comedian, people who are doing memes. None of those are appropriate. They're all inappropriate. So the right needs to calm down and let go of some of their bugaboos and allow people on the right to have a good culture, an interesting, vibrant, and fun culture. I don't want to live in a world where everybody's a phony like Mitt Romney.
And we saw when we were kids, the social right at that time, this is 80s, 70s, that kind of era, where remember the Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, the Jimmy Swaggart types, they were these just absolutely phony televangelist types who would come on, and they were moralizing prigs, and they would, and then it always turned out that they were phonies and hypocrites. And
Right. It's like the feminist sexual abuser guy.
yeah, and now in this era, you're right. The new right there's a new right that's really changed, and I think it's more libertarian. It's been influenced by more of the libertarian right, where it's more free, it's more fun, it's more cool, it's not as moralizing, and I think and again though, we do have to understand that there are two components to the right. Actually, there are the social conservatives, and there are libertarian right people, and they overlap a lot of times in terms of their political evaluations, but there is different moral foundations for those two groups, and there is going to be conflict between them. But it's not a winning strategy, I think, in life, nor is it a winning strategy politically to be, non-objective and sort of like the heavenly moralizer.
Yeah. So the upshot is judge, but in context. And first question is, why am I judging? That's the first question. So why am I judging John Crist? I just want to go see him do comedy. I really don't care if he's a slut. I really don't care. I'm not going to date him. If I ever meet him in person and was going to do something with him, I don't even think that would affect that. Right. A lot of guys, he's young, he's handsome, he's single, he's famous. I'm sorry, but you know what I'm saying? I just can't really get worked up about this. But I know that, some other people with different moral standards than me probably, I could see that. But they have to, what are you going to do? Ruin this poor guy's career? You got a funny comedian on your side and you're going to tear him down because...
Yeah, he's not a paragon of moral virtue.
He screwed somebody that, are multiple women and was kind of callous about it. And all the people saying, oh my God, unless they're absolute, uptight weirdos, have probably regretted having sex with somebody in their life,
Yeah.
Anyway. So, okay, another example from my own life just in the last couple of days. I have started watching a show on Netflix, and I love this show so much. I just can't, I am laughing, I'm crying, the writing is genius. It's a sitcom written by some people who also wrote for Friends, and it is brilliant, and it stars Jane Fonda.
Oh.
And it's in its sixth season already, and I've seen advertisements for it for a while, and I'm like, I'm not watching that. I can't stand her. I couldn't possibly get past my dislike for her and watch this show, it's not going to be good. I'm not going to be able to enjoy it or like that character or, whatever. And it's absolutely not true. I'm to the point that it's difficult for me I really don't like her. And yet I'm really, really enjoying this show. I'm 3 episodes in, and I'm already laughing and crying like I've watched this show for multiple seasons. This show is so well written and so well acted. And it's Grace and Frankie on Netflix. Highly recommended for anyone who likes comedy and who can appreciate it. You really have to probably be... you have to like comedy, because the way to appreciate this show is to appreciate the really funny writing. And of course, Lily Tomlin is in it, and she's really funny. But so is Jane Fonda.
These are all horrible people in real life.
Right. Oh.
Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Sam Waterston, Martin Sheen's in
yes.
it. Yeah.
The worst kind of communist leftists around. But all these people are flawed. And so in the characters, they're really quirky archetypes, kind of, Anyway, it's a really, really...
Well, here's a more abstract question then, just related to this, which is, you look at an artist's painting and you love the painting or what you think it represents, or you listen to a composer's music and you love the music that they make, or a band or whatever. And we all know that these people don't agree with us or they have different political views. but there is a point at which the person's own life is so awful, or their views are so awful, that it would then impinge on your ability to enjoy the work. Like, let's say Hitler painted a great painting.
Yes.
You couldn't look at it the same.
Could you really hang that in your house? Right.
And it's like Wagner, the great composer, I guess he was an anti-Semite or something like that, which, again, at that time, it probably wasn't abnormal. But let's say that, he's an anti-Semite, and then the Nazis started using his music, so a lot of people have problems with him. Or Woody Allen movies. I love Woody Allen movies. I think they're hilarious and brilliant. But, this guy is, I don't know. He denies it, but,
I'm on the fence about that. I don't know what he's done. I'm on the fence. I've read accounts by his children. They've all written something, and I don't. And also, he was investigated by the state, and they exonerated him. They didn't indict him. Yeah. So the whole incident with his 7-year-old daughter was investigated, and he was found. They didn't find any evidence at the time. So I don't know, man. I just feel like in the absence of evidence, you have to say, like, it's not true that he...
Well, but but here's the thing. Let's just ask the abstract question, which is, I do think it's legitimate at some point. I think it's totally self-defeating and not self-interested and stupid to disallow yourself to enjoy a work of art of some kind, or any work of any kind, even or to transact business, to say, I'm not going to buy that pizza because, the owner donates to some political cause I don't like. There is a level at which, and everyone has to make this judgment for themselves. I think there's a level at which you are supporting something that's so awful and so evil and so against your self-interest that in the long run, it's not in your own self-interest to support it. Like if you're buying a pizza from someone who's a, communist who's trying to take over America and who, advocates putting people in concentration camps. No, I think you should go to the next pizza place. Don't support that guy.
But the thing about it is there are many pizza places. Are there many good comedies? It
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter is what I'm saying. But I'm saying if someone was that awful and you are supporting something financially that was so...
Like trading with China. Should we be trading with China for all this, free, cheap goods? I think we're all starting to see that it's maybe not worth it.
Yeah, but it's at the same time, it's really hard to live your life this way because everything is made in China. Everything is manufactured in China. You'd almost be denying your own... your own ability to survive and function.
Right.
And so then you start to look for a political solution where you say, we need to stop trading with this country, because you almost couldn't function as an adult now if you said, I'm not gonna deal in any good. I mean, how would you even practically do that?
The only way that you could stop trading, us as individuals could stop trading with China at this point, is if the government mandates that, so that other countries sort of rise up to fill the gaps, and it will be an uncomfortable decade while that happens,
Yeah, right.
But that's the only way it could happen, because we are too enmeshed and intertwined with them. But anyway, it's kind of alarming. I think we're all realizing how alarming it is.
But your Grace and Frankie thing, I mean, that's a great example of where I personally, now you might be totally different, I don't love any comedy enough or appreciate any comedy enough to probably stomach Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin.
I thought that's same thing, Doug, but you watch one episode of this show and then you tell me that, okay?
Okay.
Because that was my opinion before I watched the first episode. And then I said, this is too good. I'm not missing it.
Yeah.
It's too freaking good.
But you're also an aficionado of like the art and craft of comedy.
Yes, I am. That's true.
So it is a little bit different in that you get so much out of the craft.
I'm so personally and professionally inspired.
Yes.
By this show that it's absolutely worth it. And if I were creating this show, If I were casting the show, I would cast different people because I don't want to support those communists. They're all communists.
Yeah.
They're all America-hating communists. I don't want to support those actors. And for whatever reason, I'm sure the show creators must be the same way. I don't know them as well as I know these superstars.
Yeah, of course.
But they must be the same way to hire 4 blatantly America-hating communists as your 4 leads. You gotta be with them politically. So probably a lot of people involved here are really, really horrible people. But for me, it's worth it. I watched episode 1, I was like, oh my God. And now after episode 3, there's no way I'm not watching this entire thing. All 6 seasons. And probably twice. It's like watching a Seinfeld. Would you give up having Seinfeld in your life just because, if the 4 leads were politically questionable or, really bad? I guess questionable is not.
Again, it's such a tough call. I think it really just depends. And the thing is everybody's a mixed bag. And so you can't apply some sort of purity test to this type of stuff. I think that, like in the case of Fonda, the picture of her with the North Vietnamese, actually going to North Vietnam and posing with the North Vietnamese was so beyond the pale, and I don't really think she ever fully apologized for it.
She said she regrets it, but she never really said like it was wrong, Whereas
like if Lily Tomlin and Sam Waterston, they're garden variety, Democrat types, and I might agree with them on some things, on other things that I certainly wouldn't, but Fonda is like that's another level for me. That's like going to North Vietnam. Now she did that when she was a kid. She was very young, but she never really, in my view, apologized for it. And then she married Ted Turner, right, the billionaire. I mean, she's a mess.
Yeah.
So I can see it at this point in time. Yeah, I mean, you're getting so much out of it. Like, is your little watching of Netflix gonna, support the communist revolution? No, I think it would. I think it's fine.
Well, as your
moral
popular.
priest, as your friend and priest, I'm blessing you to watch it.
Give me your blessing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So here's another difficult one. Here's another really difficult one. Okay, I'm going to name some people,
all right,
and we're going to judge them. Elon Musk. Right? He's creative. He's an inventor. He's an innovator, but he takes government money. He's basically.
Why do I care about Elon Musk? Like, what's the transaction I'm going to do?
You're going to buy a Tesla. You're going to look at you're going to watch a SpaceX launch and feel good about it or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fine. I mean, if he's building good cars, and you like his car, I think it's, that's fine. I wouldn't invest in his company just because I think he's crazy. And I think he's off the rails. And some of the behavior I've seen in some of the investor meetings that he's done, and I think he's not necessarily a great businessman. I don't know a lot about him though, because I don't invest in his stock. So
okay,
I don't really care about him, I guess is what I'm saying, unless I had to do business with him.
Okay.
And then I'd research it.
But if I'm asking you, is he moral or immoral? Because this comes up, and I'm asking this question because online somebody was raising the issue of some other objectivist had called him an Oren Boyle. And then another objectivist was coming along and saying, no, he's not that bad. I mean, he takes government money, but he's really a creator. He's not Oren Boyle, who didn't create anything.
Yeah, I don't judge anyone in a vacuum like that. I think that's stupid and pointless. Like, should he be taking government money? No. But if I was a business person and that was my line of work and the government was going to give me money and I have to pay taxes anyways, yeah, I would probably take it. I wouldn't advocate for it. I don't think I would go out there and send my lobbyist out to go get government money and get more of it. And if he's doing that, I think it's completely wrong.
Okay.
So
now, other Silicon Valley people, Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey, the Patreon founder, Tim Cook, these people who are deplatforming people on the right. We just heard that PayPal has now kicked off Stephen Molyneux.
Yep.
So that's a big deplatforming. He can no longer take online transactions through PayPal. And MasterCard's probably next. I mean, MasterCard and PayPal are like the two financial companies that tend to ban people on the right.
But like, I see, again, I don't even know what the question is.
Okay.
Because I'm not doing business I'm not buying Facebook stock.
You're on Facebook.
I am on Facebook. So I guess I'm supporting Mark Zuckerberg.
You might use an iPhone. I mean, but also I think that it behooves us to be outraged about the deplatforming. I find it very, very troubling. I feel like these companies together are single-handedly with Google, the Silicon Valley leftists are destroying free speech in this country. So it is important to morally judge them. They're doing that, and we need to speak out against it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I would morally judge, yeah.
But yet, Mark Zuckerberg did create something. He is a creator, essentially. And so is Jack Dorsey, and so is the guy who created Patreon. I mean, all these guys have created something. Tim Cook, maybe not so much. The people who run Google didn't create Google. But you know what I'm saying? Like let's take Zuckerberg and Jack Dorsey. They're deplatforming people on the right, and they're doing it. They're colluding to do it. They're doing it under government pressure, probably. Jack Dorsey doesn't even really care what's happening. And they're denying it and lying about it, and that's really immoral, and they're destroying free speech in our culture. But so what are they? Are they evil? Are they creators, or are they?
I think their actions are wrong, and you should oppose their actions. I don't care. The idea, and I don't know if I think this is an important distinction. This idea of like morally judging them, it sounds very like abstract and contextless to me, like a priest making a judgment. I'm judging their actions and the relationship of those actions to my own life and my own self-interest. So if they created Facebook, I love Facebook. I think it's a great platform, and I've used it a lot throughout my life. Okay, so I'm willing to go on there. Now, if Zuckerberg was giving money to the Chinese communists or, to North Korea or imprisoning people in gulags, I would, no matter how beneficial Facebook was to me, I wouldn't support him. But now you're saying, and I agree with you, they're taking steps either under government pressure or of their own volition to, deplatform conservatives. And, the first thing I say is, okay, is the benefit that I'm deriving from Facebook outweigh that? And so on the one hand, we're using Facebook to get our message out, to support free markets and individual liberty and free expression and freedom of speech. So we're using his own platform, to that extent against him and against the interests of the left. So you have to take that into consideration. We can support other alternatives and at the same time look for strategic, financial, or legal options to try and stop the threat. But I don't care about Mark Zuckerberg, like morally. I care. His actions are immoral.
Well, that's a really interesting distinction. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to wrap my head around this, because you're saying don't judge people, just judge actions. Like we shouldn't judge Mark Zuckerberg because who cares? But we can judge his actions.
Yeah, well, yes and no, because again,
I mean, why wouldn't we be able to say, like this came up where somebody says, oh, Elon Musk is an Orrin Boyle, and another person goes, no, he's not. Like, why not have that discussion? Why not know who we're dealing with? Is Mark Zuckerberg evil, or is he just kind of naive and sort of ignorant and being buffeted around by some government government and big media types that are putting a lot of pressure on him, and he's kind of collapsing because he doesn't really have his own.
Okay, well, let me put it this way. All right, and from the context of your own self-interest, a kind of label of that guy is evil. To me, if you're to make that judgment, then you're saying any interaction with this person is off limits, because everything he does is dangerous, suspect. You have to be cautious when you're dealing with this person. They're like almost a psychopath level criminal, you know? And so what purpose does it serve to judge a person as evil? If I was going to marry them or get into a relationship or a business partnership, that's an important judgment to label someone that, you know, if you've seen enough where you say, I just would never do business with that guy. He's evil. Like everything he does is wrong. It's bad. He's always willing to cheat, bend the rules, lie, steal. He's just a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? Like that is probably a good judgment to make if you have enough evidence and the stakes are high where you need to make a kind of all-encompassing call like that. If we don't know Mark Zuckerberg, so I would never say he's evil unless I saw him directly doing something that, you know, made him just have that label. But all I care about is Facebook. Like that's the only way he really impacts my life, is he has some control over this platform I use and this product I use. And to some extent, if he has political connections or he's a political lobbyist and he's agitating for laws that impact me in some way. But then again, you know, so all I care about is like his actions relative to that. Right. Because that's all that really affects my life. So what I do see is I've seen him politically seem to really relish or enthusiastically support deplatforming conservatives or getting rid of conservatives. And we're seeing this all throughout Silicon Valley. So that's all I care about is what they're, you know what I mean? I think that there's two issues here. It's sort of like a political question and a strategic question of what we do. And then there's this like abstract philosophical question that I'm trying to deal with too, which is, and all I'm saying is
you don't mix those?
I think it's a waste of time. I mean, think about how you're spending your time. Why go on this sort of like detective hunt to determine whether Elon Musk is abstractly an evil person? Like, why do you care?
Yeah, right.
Look at what serves your self-interest.
That is the point. That is the point. It is true that you could probably make a moral judgment of these people, but why would you do it? Why spend the time? And really, judging a person does take a lot of time. It's like you said about Zuckerberg. We don't really know what's going on. I think he's a bad guy in some ways, but I don't think he's a psychopath. You know, like I don't think he's, a Hitler.
Right.
So
yeah,
anyway, okay,
evil.
I have another one for you. You posted this morning. Whistleblower's attorney at one time liked a Disney post about Disney girls. And this is apparently bad.
It was a little more than that.
Okay.
Because it wasn't just he liked a Disney post. Like these people this is the lawyer for the whistleblower.
The Ukraine whistleblower. Page, what's his name anyway? We know his name.
Mark Zaid, I think is his name.
No, that's not his name. I'm Googling this.
Oh, not the whistleblower. This is about the attorney.
Right.
For the whistleblower.
But who's the whistleblower? Let's stop calling him a whistleblower.
Camarella.
He's a damn leaker.
Cia Morella.
He's a spy and a leaker. Bastard. I'm so tired of using that word whistleblower.
Yeah.
What the heck? He's not whistleblower.
It's like calling the illegal immigrants dreamers.
He was a plant in the Trump White House that leaked about no crime at all.
Yeah, he's a Trump or a Obama Clinton operative.
Okay,
he was part of the
what's his name?
But anyways, the whistleblower is Cia Morella, I think is his name.
I'm trying to get.
And what this Disney thing though was about his attorney.
Yeah. Okay.
Mark Zaid.
Yeah. Okay.
And so the attorney, the story that you're referring to was that on this guy's YouTube page, it shows him going to Disney by himself, and he had all these likes for prettiest Disney star, like Disney girls, kind of going from being girls to women, and um, so he's into the Disney girls, and he's into going to Disney by himself, and he has all sorts of pictures of himself at Disney by himself. And he said, I would have joined the FBI just for the free Disney passes. And I think it's weird, given what we know about the Democrats now.
Yeah.
But it could be totally innocent. So, I mean,
why are you worried about that? His attorney. Like, why do you care? You posted it.
Yeah, I did, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Because I think that my political goal is to destroy the Democrats and the left. So if I can tarnish this guy's reputation in any fashion, I guess I'll do so.
Okay. All right. I want to end the show.
No, this guy, no. But let me be serious. This guy actually had tweeted that in, I think, 2016, he had tweeted that the coup has begun. So this guy is
he's a deep state.
He's a deep state operative who's been working with this other deep state operative really to perpetrate a coup on the country. And now it's coming out that he likes Disney child stars and everything we know about Epstein and all these other freaks. I think it just plays into this guy could be totally innocent of that. So, it's probably wrong for me to put, but I did post that privately. It wasn't like I even put that out publicly, but there's a story just like, interesting. Because all these
another
guys
Democrat who likes little girls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Got it. All right. So let's end the show. I wanted to say I have another Netflix recommendation. So this is totally off topic, but it's actually an unrecommendation because it's the big show that they've just released called The King, about Henry V. And oh my God, you guys, the actor that they got to play Henry V is a skinny, pasty, angsty millennial. And that's basically the only kind of character he plays.
Ugh.
So Henry V, who's wearing armor and wielding a big sword, is supposedly has no muscles. And he's super skinny and white, and like a little 14-year-old boy.
Huh.
And he just is has a perpetual scowl on his face, like he just couldn't be bothered to be pleased about anything. I don't think he smiles once in the entire show.
So do you think that he's doing that do you think it's incongruent with your image of what Henry V was like and that's a bad acting job? Or do you think that he's trying to be this way, as if that's his interpretation of what Henry V was really like?
I think
that he was.
I think both the casting and then the way it's acted, which I'm not sure this kid can do anything but angsty, pasty millennial, because it's like he oozes that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they cast someone who oozes that in the role of a very strong warrior king. Like a guy who literally fought in wars with his own hands.
Yeah.
And who led men, very tough men, at a time when that would require a lot of strength and intelligence. And instead you have this kind of displeased weak-armed, kid, and supposedly that's the guy that everybody wants to follow.
Well, this reminds me of the casting of Hayden for Darth Vader.
Yes, it's the same. Yes, it's just like that. He's kind of whiny and unpleasant. And that's the guy who's supposed to lead, and be the leader of that era who was supposedly one of the great kings of England that united England.
But Sonny, we may be in for it for the next 20 or 30 years because, how do you draw any tough people from this generation of wusses that's coming up?
I don't know. I was thinking about that. I was thinking, who would I have cast instead? Jesus, I don't know. Right. And then I'm worried about my daughter. I'm like, how's she ever going to find a guy? This is the kind of guy she's going to bring home to me, There's going to be
a guy named Tad with skinny jeans and coiffed hair. And
yeah, maybe it's a woman,
carrying his phone in his pocket and, God, it might be a woman, who knows what gender he is. He's transitioning or something. Yeah. This is what we've got.
This is what our future looks like.
Clint Eastwood and Marlon Brando are gone.
So I didn't actually finish the movie because I got to the point where, okay, King Henry conquers France. He conquers France through some ingenious military strategizing and toughness and amazing leadership, able to unite England to go and conquer France. And France had overwhelming numbers compared to the English, and the English still won. I mean, this is the famous Crispin's Day speech, right? They have very few men, and they go and they beat France, and they frickin' take over France. And he becomes king of France. Uh-huh. And then the way he solidifies this in real life is he marries the king of France's daughter, whom he's just conquered, and then he marries the daughter because he's gonna fuck that and have babies with that to secure his rule, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna question his rule after he marries the daughter,
right?
And has babies.
That's right.
So in the movie, though, what happens?
Spreading a seed.
In the movie, he meets his future fiancée for the first time, and oh boy, is she a feminist.
No. And
she starts telling him how it's going to be. And she starts telling him how don't be so proud of yourself. You've done nothing. Oh. And you're going to have to earn my respect.
Come on.
I am not kidding. God help us, man.
Wow. So they're just rewriting history now.
Well, I mean, nobody knows what really went on behind closed doors of Henry V and his fiancée, right? But not that, I guarantee you.
Kind of thinking that didn't happen.
Kind of thinking that he came in there and said, I'm in charge, and was. Yeah. And if she had said that, he would have chopped her head off and married her younger sister. I mean, that's the way it was back then, so come on.
Okay, honey. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You want me to,
I'm sorry. And of course, he's completely cowed by her and her toughness. Like, oh, of course, you're my equal.
Oh, yes, darling. Yeah. Wouldn't have it any other way.
That's when I turned it off. And there was only like 15 minutes left, but I'm like, I'm done. I can't watch anymore. I'm not going to watch this anymore. So I wouldn't watch this show. That's a negative review. All right. So that's it for our show today. Thanks for joining us. It's good to be back. And maybe we'll do it next week. Hopefully. I've still got a lot of issues going on in my family, but we'll see what we can do.
You're rising above.
I'm feeling better. I'm getting there. Okay.
Good. Glad to have you back.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the House of Sunny podcast. Go check out Sunny on YouTube at her channel, House of Sunny. Everything Sunny does is fan-funded. And because she's likely to get kicked off and demonetized on every platform at some point, please support her over at patreon.com/House of Sunny. Become one of Sunny's elite squad and have access to behind-the-scenes footage, t-shirts, special events, and more.